Greetings.
Greetings. How are you? Good evening. Well, I've been going through a whole bunch of papers and everything.
Good.
So I have some things, and of course, hopefully, if Bob Brady comes on, he has quite a bit also, which would be really good to hear from them too.
Great.
From,
Excuse me while I wolfed on my dinner before.
No, go ahead. No, I've just brought lots of drinks, so I brought Moxie.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, I even have my Ted Williams Moxie placard up too. So he's back there also. I don't know. And you probably can't.
I got my Ted's root beer. Yeah, my room is such a mess. I usually keep my background blurred.
Yeah. Well, I'm keeping mine dark. Although I look as though this is kind of a work in progress back.
Yeah, no, it looks this doesn't look bad. I see Ted behind you.
Oh, you do? Okay, as long as you can see Ted. All right, that's good. Yeah.
So how you been? Yeah, I'm just gonna I don't know how many people we have coming on, and actually I look so pasty. I'm gonna turn off my big light and see how it looks.
Yeah,
I'm a little sensitive to the fact that I'm just getting over double COVID.
Yeah, well, you know what? I am just really beginning to wonder about those these tests and everything. And I remember way back when it was like when we had the first cases in 2020 and all that. And I remember shipping a patient up to the floor that had COVID like 6 weeks before. All right, so they did probably one of these rudimentary tests way back then, and he did test positive. He didn't have any symptoms, wasn't coming in the hospital for that. He was coming in for psych issues. But anyway, so we had a conference with the infectious disease specialist at the hospital, and he was saying that fragments of the virus float in your system for an indefinite period of time, and he deemed this man as non-infectious because he had negative tests and positive tests, kind of like what a lot of people are going through. And so we shipped him up and everything with all the papers and all that, but the nurse, the head nurse up on the floor who ended up getting the patient called down to us in the ER and lambasted us up one side and down the other. I was totally gobsmacked by it because it had all happened before I even had gotten there. And I said, what the H is going on and everything? And but she had never read the report that came with the patient. Now, the thing is, I'm just wondering about the fragments being picked up by the test as it's floating around in your system? Right. I don't know. I mean, a friend of mine who just decided to do a test, and she had never had COVID before, had all the shots and everything, and she came up with a positive test. So she didn't know what to make of that. I don't know.
Yeah, I
don't know.
I think it's still a work in progress.
Oh,
in terms of trying to figure everything out.
Yeah, I think that in years to come we may hear a little bit more of a nuanced interpretation of what is going on and everything. So I don't know. It just really because hey, every time that I have a cough or a sneeze or something, or maybe I have like nasal discharge from one nostril, should I run out and get a test?
Yeah, no, I mean, I was really sick before.
Yeah, and that's
why am I so white?
It's just the light reflecting. You know why? You have all the white around on your desktop around the picture and everything. See, and maybe you're sitting closer. See, when I sit back, I get a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm just white. I mean, I wonder if there's a way to change my screen. I mean, I am very white though. Yes, I am a white guy.
You're just a white guy. What do you
can't deny that?
Get over it.
I was just listening while I was working out before the show. I was listening to a SABRcast interview with Jeff Pearlman.
Oh yeah.
I've never met Rob Nair. He's a really nice guy.
He is. I've met him once, and it was at one of the conventions because he was the one that we were talking about Rube Waddell and about an article that was in the Chicago Tribune
Mhm.
that Rube Waddell had hit a baseball at the old Huntington, the old,
Huntington Avenue grounds.
yeah, over there. And he hit the ball so far that it went over and landed in the smokestack of a baked bean factory that was
Oh.
on the periphery of the outfield. And
That's
it got
awesome.
lodged into like the whistle or something that was on there, and the whistle blew and everybody came out and they, all this. So he wanted to know if that story was real or fiction. So he had me look up in all the Boston newspapers for the date of that game. He gave me the date of the game and everything to see if there was like a fire department report or some sort of a, because he really, really wanted that to be a true story. And unfortunately, we could not find anything that would substantiate it in the papers.
That reminds me of the stories of like, home runs landing in trains,
Yeah.
behind Braves Field and like ending up in like, Elmira.
Well, look at it this way. It is plausible that a ball could be hit onto the train tracks outside of Fenway Park and on several other ball fields around, and it could get transported who knows where. Yeah.
Has there ever been a documentation of that, like really proven?
Not that I know of, but it's always been one of these fantastical things that everybody has said is plausible. And I'm sure it's been worked into several fiction stories about just such things. Yeah.
So last night, it was really sad to hear about Debbie Matson.
Oh my God. Was she laid off at the same time as Gordon Eads?
No.
Who was that? Somebody else was, and I don't remember who it was now.
I always wondered if this is being recorded, so I don't want to say anything bad, but I always wonder if Debbie was kind of grandfathered in, like she could never be laid off because she was such a beloved employee. Because the magazine like really it wasn't the same thing anymore. I mean, they're still creating and stuff, but it wasn't like when we were all writing for it in the 90s. They're not selling it. And Walt Cherniak. I can let him know.
All right.
That's fun.
That's good.
There we go. Well, almost doubling our viewers here.
I did hear from a few people who said that they were going to be here, so we shall see.
Yeah, I didn't do my usual. I mean, I was just so busy trying to recover. Oh, Brian McClure. Should I let him in? No, I'll let him wait. I mean, it's only 7:52.
Oh, well, it's okay. Yeah, come.
I want to eat my dinner.
Well, no, go ahead. Keep eating everything. Yes.
I should probably not show myself while I'm eating. All right. But
I love it.
I didn't know. I mean, I'd heard Deb was sick, and then of course Bill said something about it. But I saw. Actually, I think it was John Caron, the Fenway Johnny's guy.
Yeah.
Who posted something about how he had a bunch of people at Fenway at West End Johnny's yesterday for like a wake. I was really kind of bummed. Like, I wish I'd known about it. Like, Dick Johnson was there. I wish somebody had told me.
It seemed like it was, initially just let out to a very small group. I know.
Yeah, it was pretty small. I mean, I wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was in the second tier, I think, of people in terms of Debbie, like, she's my editor on probably, 50 stories through the years.
Oh.
But I didn't work with her, in a press capacity, really. I mean, when I got, when I rose up in Dana-Farber and was doing a lot of the Jimmy Fund stories and stuff for the magazine, she was always great about. So I worked a little more one-on-one with her there, but it used to be I would just send in stories. And I swear, like, they were never changed. I mean, it was always like
marvelous.
If I wrote too much, she was always like understanding. And yeah, and I remember she told me a great story. I interviewed her maybe for the Fenway Centennial book. And she told me about, I want to say that like her birthday, her 18th birthday was the day of Carlton Fisk's home run
No.
in 75. And that she was like watching it, and like she always had the special connection, Carlton Fisk, because of that. And those were after she started working for the Sox, and
Oh.
she told them about it. And I saw when she passed, maybe it was her 20th birthday, because I think she was born in 55. So she
Okay.
wasn't very old.
No, yeah.
Maybe 66, 67, and I don't know what the circumstances were. Maybe,
Oh,
but
gee.
hey, Walt,
There he is.
How are you?
doing good, doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. I'm not sure your math works out with Debbie. You're talking about Debbie Matson, I think, right?
Yeah, we were
Yeah.
trying to figure out
Yeah, figure out.
like
yeah,
why, about her birthday. and
Yeah,
Carlton Fisk.
because I was 18 when Carlton Fisk hit his home run, but I was born in 57. So
No, 67.
yeah,
Carlton
that's-
Math,
Oh,
Carlton.
19, if you're born in 57, you'd be 18 in 75.
that's the way my math works. Yeah,
Right. And that would
yeah, but I
make
thought you said Debbie was born in 55.
he was.
Wow, well, he didn't say
It
30.
might have been her 20th birthday.
Come on,
Yeah,
come on.
Yeah, gotta get the numbers right.
It was in the right decade.
Well, all right. I'm done with my food, so I can start my video now.
Okay.
Well, you guys got to tell me if I have salad in my teeth.
No one
we-
can see it.
And
All right.
again, there's another white guy in the room, and I'm still like much whiter than him.
Well,
Now, I wonder if I put on my big lights, whether it'll make it. I don't know. Just trying to figure out why I'm so white, Walt.
Yeah.
You look perfect. And I'm just like,
I've actually only got a tiny little lamp in my office here, but I brought a second lamp in here so I don't look like a freaking vampire. So,
you guys ever watch that show, What We Do in the Shadows?
I have, yeah.
Very funny. Very funny show. All right.
So whose idea was this?
Was it my idea? We were like just throwing ideas around. I don't really remember. You remember, Deb? Or Joanne?
Yeah. I think I have some blame for it.
No, credit, not play.
Yeah, you should take that.
No, we were talking up ideas and everything like that. And because of the fact that the Red Sox ended up in the basement.
Yeah.
And it's not that the Red Sox have never been there before. After all, there was the 86 years, a lot
Yeah,
of
Oh, was
you
it
know what?
86? Okay.
I have to say, I take exception to that basement talk. There were like 6 or 7 American League teams with worse records than the Red Sox. They're in the basement in a 5-team American League East.
That was the best. That was the best
Well,
division
that
of
was it.
baseball.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You know, there were teams in the playoffs whose records were not that much better than the Red Sox.
This is true, but with the infusion with the AL East and also a bit of Red Sox ego, all that.
Oh,
that
yes.
kind of compounds it and all. And so after we had thrown this idea out, because we had also wanted to just do a meeting where we would have people come and just talk about everything.
Yeah.
So
I think
we're waiting.
that's-
Yeah,
I'll tell you, like, we in the Bob Davis chapter, which is the one I belong to down here,
Mhm.
primarily, we have a thing we've done monthly for over 20 years called Talking Baseball, which you've probably seen,
Yeah.
and you may even have attended some of them. Since COVID, those meetings used to be, they'd be one Saturday a month, and they would be 3 to 4 hours, and the speaker probably would take up 2 hours of it, and then the rest of the group would talk and
Mhm.
well, we now get better speakers. We get great speakers from all over the country, but the thing's over in an hour and a half, and everybody goes away.
So that's
You
it.
know,
Yeah.
The social element is gone.
I'm gonna let everybody in here. I just
Yes,
noticed.
please do. Yeah, bring them on.
Okay, admit all.
Yeah.
Not a huge crowd right now, but it's probably gonna grow.
No, it looks pretty good. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
this is good. I think.
Hello, everybody.
they're-
And are we recording? We
Uh,
were, I think it automatically started recording when I turned it on.
I did. Yeah, it is recording. Yeah, I
Yep.
see the little red dot in the corner. Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
So welcome, everybody. Thanks for showing up to our sob stories, crying in the beer.
Or whichever you would like to do. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
whatever you want to do. So not surprised it's not a huge crowd because this is a very, not like an upbeat meeting. You never know. Maybe we'll get,
No,
there are some more coming in here. Oh, they're all bopping on here.
there you go.
All right.
Yes.
So as we stated in the intro, and I'm going to pass it over to Joanne for a minute.
Or- yeah.
And then, because I know she has, as per usual, her poetry.
Yes, I do.
perhaps. And, we thought it'd be fun just to, I love Lon's background there. So just thought it'd be fun to kind of share some of our favorite, sob stories, horror stories about being Red Sox fans after kind of a horror of a year. And the fact that it's easier to tell these stories after 2004, I think we all agree. But that we have plenty of them in our reserve. So thought it'd be fun to just kind of swap stories and maybe, just have a little bit of, give and take and interaction and more of a casual meeting, and then we'll have a speaker probably next month. And so Joanne, why don't you, by the way, my name isn't Saber Virtual. I am Saul Wisnia. One of the co-chairs in Boston. And unfortunately, our usual co-host, tri-host, Bill Nowlin, could not make it tonight. But he's here in
down at
spirit.
the he's down at Harvard Square right now. At the oh god, yeah, what's the name of the place? They always had the music, music groups.
Is he at a music thing? Is he at some
Yeah.
kind of a music thing?
Yeah.
His
what's
other
that
life.
cafe
Okay.
kind of
All right.
thing?
So Joanne, why don't you kick us off, and then you can hand it back to me. I'll share my stories, and then we can just let other folks bop on.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Because this is Boston and hub of the universe, and we try to keep the level of I don't know, intellectual qualities up. What we traditionally will do is read a bit of poetry, which gives us a little bit more class than usual, But anyway, one poem that I pulled out comes from 1919, actually, all the way back to there, where Red Sox fans were grousing about what was going on at that particular time. And it kind of lends itself to even modern day. And the name of the poem is The Ultimatum. All right. Remember, this is November of 1919. Babe Ruth turned in his uniform and his crimson socks and says no more will he perform for Boston in the box. As far as Boston is concerned, he is a total loss, and from the game he has adjourned until they come across. Unless the ransom of a king is paid to Dr. Ruth, no, Dr. Ruth, Mr. Ruth, the Boston he'll refuse to fling, and that's the honest truth. Nor will he cover in the field and ply his trusty ash, unless his envelope should yield a goodly wad of cash. No more he'll lay against the pill with his productive stick, unless with dough the Bostons fill the babe's capacious kick. So to the Golden West he'll go. Well, he will try to clean up 40 million bucks or so upon the picture screen. Now, the thing is that we're still grousing about money and the Red Sox and about the players and how much we're paying them, and also the ones that are disappearing because, of course, in January of 1920, Ruth went to New York. And the thing was, though, that he wasn't the only one going, but you can name a couple of other players that went even before him, such as Tris Speaker. He wasn't the first one to be found out. And now here we are in 2022, worrying about where is Xander Bogaerts going to go, and what about next year? Does that mean we're going to lose Raphael? what's next? It's the same old thing that was going on 100 years ago. So unfortunately for us, that's what happens with this. Now, the other thing, in order to kick it off, to bring it up to the future, I do want to read one small comment about Red Sox fans in the previous years that go all the way back. And I had found many comments that were made about how Red Sox fans and also the Red Sox franchise, and also even before them in the 19th century, had a certain reputation that seems to have dogged us and them from the earliest day. So this is from 1887 of all times. And this is what the Chicago Herald said about baseball fans in Boston and also about the teams. The Boston crank is cold-blooded and fiendish. He has seen baseball for years and years, and yet he cannot hold his tongue. As a rule, he wears filmy side whiskers and a pair of spectacles and a tall hat. During the progress of a game, the blood leaves his face and his eyes begin to leak. He stares at the players with a wild look and tugs at his pantaloons with his thin white fingers. Don't worry about that. But he never sweats. Nobody ever saw a Boston baseball crank wet a hair during a game. He seems to be under the influence of some mesmeric power. He is paralyzed by excitement. If the Harvard yell did not burst from his thin lips at frequent intervals in the game, he would look like a man in a trance. The Boston crank thinks that John Morrill, about as great a man as Paul Revere, and is willing to wager anything from a little neck clam to a hatful of money that Johnston is the greatest center fielder in the country. So says Harry Seymour of the Chicago Herald. So you know what? Things haven't changed. It's the same old thing. Because that reminded me of the Dan Shaughnessy baseball editorial in the Boston Sunday Globe yesterday, if any of you happen to have had the chance to read it. But I've got it here. So, but anyway, he opens up with just this brief statement. Do the Red Sox care that they're largely irrelevant around here at this hour? Is anybody listening to the sounds of silence on Jersey Street? How long will the Sox continue to suggest they are going to do something about their roster while they do nothing? Same old thing. All right, take it away, Saul.
Oh, that was great. Great stuff. It's interesting. November 1919, I wasn't even thinking about Ruth. And a month later, I was thinking about the Black Sox, which just happened.
Right,
And,
exactly. No, they were just
yeah.
roughing about Ruth. Yeah, in other words.
So it's interesting that they were already
Yeah,
absolutely were
absolutely.
already there.
Well, it's really funny because the curse of the Bambino and everything. I don't know who was cursing who. Ruth certainly wasn't unhappy about leaving Boston. He went very willingly to New York. There was no problem there. There was no curse of the Bambino. That was also something that we can also blame on Dan Shaughnessy. So
as Glenn Stout and Dick Johnson proved.
Yes,
Yep.
exactly.
No net debunking and everything.
Yeah, it's all that sort of stuff. No,
Yep.
it was a great literary trophy, and it served him well, but there weren't no curse. I'm sorry.
Yep.
It's just
All right. So I'm going to tell my stories really quick. And I'm sorry if I might have told one before. But because they're so ingrained in my brain. But so I'm 55, so I unfortunately can't remember 67. I'd love it if somebody tells me what it felt like after Game 7 in 67. Maybe somebody was there. I know Bill Allen was there, but I think he's not here tonight. Although I see his name. Yeah. Oh, Greg was there. Okay. So but that was a little bit like 75, which I do remember, and I was there because it felt like the team had kind of overachieved to go 7 games. In 67, it was, of course, overachieved just to get there. And then in 75, I think most people really didn't think they would take the Reds, the Big Red Machine, to 7 games. Of course, they should have won that game, being up 3-0. But I was at that game, and I do remember I was 8 years old and being up way past my bedtime and just not understanding why. Like it wasn't like the night before where everyone was going nuts at the end of the game and like walking home and
Saul.
Yeah.
Saul, Stephen Trimble here.
Hi,
I
Stephen.
believe Bill Nowlin had some distinction during one of the games at the World Series in '67. I want to say he might have been the first one on the field or the first one
Oh, wow.
on the mound of one of Lonborg's games.
That's a really neat story. I know Steve Buckley told a very, very powerful story about seeing a picture of the last game of the regular season when Lombard beat the Twins and everyone's going nuts around the mound, and Steve's looking at the picture and he sees his brother, whose name now escapes me. I'm sorry, and his brother, the first time he saw the photo, I believe his brother had already died in a car crash, and it was like seeing the photo and noticing his brother in it. And I think it might have been like he saw it like hanging on a wall at like, the cask and flagon or something, and he just like he was so blown away by noticing his brother in it that he found whoever took the picture. I don't know if it was Dennis Brearley or one of these guys, and he got a copy of the picture to like give to his parents or something. And that was a very moving story about '67.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I do have some great stories that I could share that other people told me about '67, but I'd rather have us just share our own stories. I'll just share a couple really quick of mine, and then whoever wants to go next, maybe raise your hand or something. So '86, all right, I'll take Mark next. '86, I was 19 years old, sophomore at Syracuse, and needless to say, the majority of the fans were Mets fans among my friends and dorm mates. And actually, I'd come home to try to get tickets to Game 6. The tickets fell through, but Game 5. The tickets fell through, but I decided to stay in town a couple more days. So when the Red Sox won in Game 6, I could go to the parade. And surely they would win either Game 6 or Game 7, right? And Game 6, of course, we all know what happened. When they were up 5-3, I had a girlfriend with me, and I told her to go get my camera so she could take a picture of me that I could have developed like right away. Wow, JD Plunkett, that's a guy I went to high school with. I see him down there. Hey, JP, how you doing? We're all talking about our favorite. He asked what we're talking about. Our favorite horror stories as Red Sox fans, but a funny horror story. Anyway, so I stayed home. I told my girlfriend to get my camera. She came downstairs, and then I realized, what am I doing? I'm jinxing them. She's gonna take a picture. I was gonna be like #1, pointing at the screen. I was gonna run to Photomat, get it developed, and like hand it out like 50 copies to all my friends at school that were Mets fans, and just totally in their face. And I said, no, wait. And of course, it was too late. Like, she didn't take the picture, but the karma was already bad. So that was my fault. '86. I'm really sorry about that. But then Game 7. So I trudged back to Syracuse for Game 7, really depressed, but figured they could still win. And I was in, this is back when everyone would go to the lounge on your dorm floor to watch games, because of course nobody had TV in their room, and nobody had, computers with TVs. What are we talking about? So we were all sitting in the lounge, about 25 of us. And of course, Sox were up 3-0, and they, Mets came back, and, Strawberries, 3-minute home run trot and everything else. And Hal Nipper. So we all know how. So after Barrett struck out to end that game, like as soon as the game ended, like I just was so depressed. I started, leaving the room, and suddenly I was just surrounded by Mets fans, just taunting me, pointing at me. And I just had to run from my room. And then the next morning I woke up and my door was plastered with like, newspapers. Somebody had gone downtown to pick up all, the Times and the Post and the Daily News and stuck them all on my door. And I'm still friends with some of those guys, and we joke about it, the Mets fans, because after 2004 we can joke. So that was '86, and then the other one is '03, and in '03, Sox were up, of course, 4-0, 4-1, 4-2 in Game 7 of the ALCS. I actually watched it last night to get psyched up for this night, and like when Pedro starts letting up the hits in the eighth, I'm like, I'm still like yelling at Grady to come take him out, like it's gonna work. And Grady comes out and he's like talking to him, and it's amazing because you could totally see Grady like saying, and Pedro shaking his head, like, what's he gonna say? Of course he wants to stay in. And of course he stays in, and then I think it was, Posada got the and it was really a dying quail that drove in 2 runs. It wasn't a rocket. I mean, he did let up a big hit, or maybe Posada had a big shot into the corner, and then Matsui hit a dinker or something, tie the game. Okay, now Walt's telling me I'm wrong. What was it?
Posada hit the blooper.
Oh, Posada hit the blooper. I was right the first time. Okay, so anyway, so we all know what happened, and Grady lost his job in a few hours. So so that game they were up 4-0, and there's a knock on my door. I'm watching at home with my 3-year-old son, my wife, and my 1-month-old daughter, who's got her little Red Sox outfit on. I'm holding her in my arms the whole game. She was like the good luck charm. She was born August 16th. Red Sox won 16 out of 17 after she was born, starting with a comeback that night against the Blue Jays, half a mile from the hospital. So I thought she was our good luck charm. I thought it was going to work. Anyway, knock at my door. My buddy Scott comes in, another Syracuse guy, but a Boston guy who went to Syracuse. He comes in, he's like, can you believe we're going to the World Series? I'm like, what are you, an idiot? It's only the 8th inning. It was the top of the 8th. I swear to God. And I kicked him out. I said, you're never watching a game here again. And I think I held it for about 15 years. And I think I finally let him in after 04. Yeah, no, not after 04, after maybe 18. So anyway, so those are my 2 stories. And I promised Mark he could go next. And so everyone mute when you're not on, obviously. I didn't say that before.
All right. Some things were brought up. Do I have any nightmares? As you know, I'm not a big. I like the Sox, as you know, but you know the team that I root for. But anyway, it's funny, Saul. You said about not having TVs in your room in college. Well, in 1975, this girl I was going out with at Penn State had a color TV, a small color TV in her room. And we watched Game 6 of the World Series on her color TV.
That's impressive.
Just want to tell you, I mean, it is an amazing thing. There's certain things that I remember, I remember that. And now I have a question to ask of you, a question of anybody. Somebody brought this up. A friend of mine years ago brought this up about 67. The fans come on the field after the last out. And again, I'm watching it in Bristol, Pennsylvania, but I know about the Sox because my brother went to Harvard and he said, oh, you got to watch the Sox and the Cubs this year because the Cubs were really good at the beginning of the year too. And everybody comes out on the field at Fenway. It's as if they've won the pennant, but they haven't won the pennant. Mm-hmm. That's when you really think about it. I mean, it's an interesting thing. It was great that the fans did it. I don't know what to respond. I don't know how everybody would have responded if, in fact, the Tigers had won this. If, in fact, McAuliffe doesn't hit into his only double play of the year, the Tigers somehow come back and win the game. And if they win the game, then there's a 1-game playoff. I think.
Yeah, 1-game playoff. I think it was going to be at Detroit.
Yeah, so I wonder how everything would have. I mean, there were some assumptions that were made, like everybody just comes on the field. And again, I understand it. Both the Tigers and the Red Sox haven't been anywhere forever. But it is an interesting thing. He just mentioned it to me years ago. He said, what? And he said something to me, and I don't believe it. He says, was the fix in that the Sox were going to win no matter what? Because it is kind of, the whole thing is really, when you think about it today, I mean, but.
Hey, Denny McClain, I've heard that story from Denny McClain.
Well, Denny McClain.
He thinks it was a fix because of
the mob dropped the piano on his foot.
Well, that was, but that was like in 70. Yeah. But
Hey,
like in '67, you
fix
thought the
wasn't-
mob through that series too.
I mean, the fix wasn't in any other way, but besides that, I mean, McLean was just a putz.
Yeah.
This happened. He was, I mean, it happens. But those are two things early on that I remember about the Sox, and I was despondent after. I was despondent after 03. After that, I was despondent. Lynn and I had a good friend. He was originally from Lebanon, and he doesn't move to the States until he's about 20. And by this time, he's already in his 40s. And he even called Lynn and said, "Listen, I don't watch baseball, but even I know that Grady had to take out the pitcher. Even I know." So I mean, I was despondent then, but
It was so preventable. I mean, it feels like it was preventable.
although, as a Phillies fan, watching Game 6 of the World Series, some people might—I know that's we're not talking about the Phillies, but some people might have thought that Rob Thompson might have taken out Wheeler a little too soon. So I mean, but again, I'm rooting for a team that finished in third place and somehow got to the sixth game of the World Series. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say. I don't remember anything from 46, except that I've read about that. I guess fans must have been really pissed when the Sox had to play those extra exhibition games, and Ted Williams got hit.
Yeah, he hurt his elbow.
I guess Harvard
hit
or
by
something.
Bob
Was he-
Hefner hit him on the elbow with a pitch in
Was
a
that against-
meaningless All-Stars versus Red Sox exhibition.
Yeah. All right.
So thanks, Mark. Who wants to go next? Greg, did you raise your hand? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I'll be quick. 67, the reason I was 16 years old, junior at North Andover High. I skipped school to attend game 2 of the World Series, and I got caught. And the assistant principal, God rest his soul, just told me, "You saw one hell of a game. Let's forget about it." And then the 7th game was on Columbus Day. So we had the day off, went in with a bunch of guys that day as well. And it wasn't so much, it was disappointment because we wanted to see the victory. We wanted to see, but on the other hand, we were still thrilled after what had gone on in the last weekend, the Minnesota game on Sunday, and then the World Series game, and then they won a game. Dr. Lonborg won a game out in St. Louis. And I think the exhilaration of 1967 is first time in our cognizant lives we're seeing contending baseball. And that has lasted right up until recent times. 75, I also was there for the 7th game. I was drinking heavily with my brother-in-law in the center field bleachers. And
That's where I was too.
yes,
I don't remember seeing you though.
no, I was there. And I know it was instant sobriety when Tony Perez hit the home run over the wall. And then they went on to lose the game where they put a AAA pitcher in the bottom, to pitch the Darryl the Brain Johnson put a AAA pitcher in
Burton.
to pitch the top of Jim Burton, L7, top of the 9th, and against the Big Red Machine in a tie game in the club's most crucial point in history. I was there in 78 when they lost to the Yankees. I was there in 78 when they lost to the Yankees. So I had the misfortune to be there for the 3 worst moments in Red Sox history. And then, as times went on, 2000, in 2004.
Or 3? You're thinking of the
I got
yeah, 4 is a good thing. We're not talking about 04 tonight.
2003. I was putting together a snowblower that night, and when they lost the game in New York, I went upstairs and told my wife, "We're not going to the World Series next week." And then,
Wait,
I
did you
don't-
say putting together a snowblower?
Yeah.
So did you like have any thoughts of turning it on and just like rolling over yourself?
no, because I had seen it before. I was used to it. You know, Boston area, born and raised. 86, I did have a party at the house because I had my man cave. I had a Kloss Nova Beam 7-foot TV screen. So had a party for the 6th game. And it ended in just dead silence. 21 people walked out of the house. And on Monday, I was flying out to California on a business trip, which I had delayed because of the World Series. And it was 3-0 when I got off the plane at LAX. And by the time I picked up the rental car and got into it, was driving down the highway, it was 6-3. And then in 2004, this is a highlight, I guess. I walked out of game 4 at the Yankees because I was with my father, who was elderly at the time. He's no longer with us, but I didn't want to put him through that. And when they didn't win the game in the 9th inning, I said, let's go, because I don't want to see these bit celebrate on the field under my nose. I've seen it too many times. And got in the car. By the time I drove up to drop my dad off in his driveway in Lawrence, the Red Sox had won the game. Then I get home and I log on to my email, and my daughter sent me a note. Oh, you're home already? She was in Iraq at the time. You're home already? I said, yeah, I'm home already. We left early, but they won the game. The only
I love how you tell these stories and you just drop in these little asides, like putting together a snowblower, daughter in Iraq. I mean, was she like
Right.
serving in the military?
I don't know where Bill is. I owe him a chapter of a book there. But the nice thing about them winning the World Series in 2004, it was such a huge fraction as far as what was going on around us, because my father-in-law, he was blown out of his home with Hurricane Charlie, and my daughter was in Iraq on the ground, and they won the World Series. And that time, and that was
You know what, Greg, we should have your daughter on sometime to talk about that. That would be a great. I did interview a soldier that was there in 04 once before. But I'd love to hear from her. That maybe you guys could do it together. Like it'd be like talking about you being in touch with her and talking about the season and the playoffs. That would be really neat. Can I ask you one really quick question before we go on to somebody else? You said you were there in 78. Now I remember watching that game on TV. And I just remember reading Gammons and everybody the next day, and how everybody talked about the dead silence at the end of that game versus any other game, like 2 points of dead silence. One, when Reggie hit the home run and you could hear Steinbrenner clapping and like Reggie going over and like high-fiving him. And then the end of the game when it was just like so quiet. And I've watched the video a bunch of times and I can kind of tell, but I was just curious if you remember if there was like quieter than you've ever seen Fenway before.
No, because there are too many Yankee fans in the house, so there was some celebration. But
you did hear that. You did hear the Yankee fans.
yeah, I did hear celebration, but I was kind of in my own funk at the time.
Yeah.
The only thing I wanted to say before I go, the thing about them being in the World Series in 1986, I became a season ticket holder in 1988. And that was because after the 1986 postseason, my wife absolutely, positively refused to camp out in the street to get tickets. That was the last straw. And no, you're not going to do this. But my job situation wasn't certain in 1987. As it turned out, I lost my job and got another one in Boston. So in 1988, I bought my seat, section 15, and I'm still there.
So you didn't marry the girl with the color TV?
Pardon me?
You didn't marry the girl with the color TV in 75?
That wasn't Greg, that was Mark.
Oh, that was Mark. You could have married Mark's ex. I don't know. All right. Who wants to raise their hand and tell the next story?
We also got to get Bob Brady in.
To tell his about the Boston Braves.
He does have something to say. So
all right.
So
I'm sorry. Well, can you wait? We're gonna let Bob Brady in.
Yeah.
And maybe he could tell us the sad story about another Boston team.
Yeah.
Hi,
Oh.
Bob.
Okay, am I on?
You're
Yep,
on, but we
you're
can't see your
on.
lovely
You're on,
face.
How do you do that? I mean, I
You
just
gotta hit start video. Do you see the little video camera there in the corner? Oh,
start video. Where the heck?
right next to mute.
Oh, okay, okay.
Hey.
Ah, there you are.
All right. Great to see you.
Okay, let me say I got about 3 things to say regarding the Braves. First, at our last virtual meeting, I did a presentation on a book that I put out for the Boston Braves Historical Association.
Wonderful book.
Yeah, excellent.
Boston's Ballpark Broadsides. I don't know if I can show you it. And the question was asked at that time, is it available to non-members? We distributed to all of our members of the Boston Braves Historical Association, and some of them are also SABR members, so there's that kind of interaction. And I couldn't answer the question at the time because the printer was in charge of distributing all the books, and we didn't know at that time whether we'd have any extras. Well, since that time and up to now, I have gotten back some copies, a very limited number of copies, and I am happy to offer them for sale at a break-even cost if anyone is in fact interested in picking up a copy of it. As you might know, it includes panoramic photographs of Braves Field and Fenway Park at the time when there were advertisements on it. And also because of those photographs, the previous day's lineups were there, so I could identify actually the game that took place before the photograph was taken. So if anybody's interested in picking up a copy, they can get in touch with me at bobbrady46, all one word, at Gmail, or Googling Boston Braves Historical Association, going to the website and going to the contact us link, and we'll provide you with the mailing address and any necessary information, or answer any questions you might have. And I might also mention, if you want to take a look at what it is, the presentation is in fact on YouTube. It's still on YouTube, and you can go to YouTube and look at that presentation. It's titled "Stay at Home with SABR, Bob Brady, Boston Braves Historical Association," and it shows you photographs that appeared in the book. What I'd like to talk about also is the fact that a couple of significant events in Boston Braves history took place this year. Back in 1995, Gaffney Street, which is the street that leads down to Braves Field, now Nickerson Field, the sign was being replaced because the Agganis Arena had opened up, and they were putting up the Harry Agganis Way sign. And fortunately, one of our members was walking by at that time, asked the city of Boston worker if he could have that sign, the Gaffney Street sign, which is very big and very heavy. And the worker said, yeah, didn't even ask for a tip or a beer or anything of that sort. And we stored it in our archives with the hope that we could display it at some time or find a permanent home for it. This year, we got in touch with Dick Johnson at the Sports Museum at the TD Garden, and Dick graciously agreed to accept it, and it now resides in a glass case in the museum with other Boston Braves artifacts. The other significant event occurred at Nickerson Field. Boston University decided to resurface the field, which was formerly Braves Field, as we all know, with new artificial turf. And in doing so, they also decided to take a look at photographs of Braves Field, and using GPS technology, they identified the site of where home plate was. And what they have done is imprinted Braves Field's home plate on the turf at Nickerson Field. So now, in addition to the home plate at Huntington Avenue grounds on the campus of Northeastern University, you can go to Boston University's Nickerson Field, and walk down to where that home plate is and stand where a lot of baseball immortals, including Babe Ruth, Ted Williams, and others once stood.
That is so cool. Did you have anything to do with that, Bob? Did you tell those guys to?
No, it came out of the blue, and unfortunately, they were using technology. We have the actual blueprints, and as you know, we have an expert who does tours of the field. And you know, all he did was imprint it in the field. There's no marker to explain what it is, and it's basically painted on. So who knows whether it's even going to survive a New England winter? But you know, we are hopeful that they'll do something a little bit more permanent. But at least for this point in time, it's marked. And the last newsletter that the association put out, we included a photograph of the home plate as it currently stands, along with a photograph of Braves Field when it was the home of the Braves, and you can match it up to see how close they in fact did come. I think our expert agrees that it's pretty close. So those are the two things. Now, what I'd like to just conclude with is to add to the pity party from a Boston Braves perspective by noting that next year we have two anniversaries of days that happy, sad days. Next year will be the 75th anniversary of the last National League pennant won by a Boston team, the 1948 Boston Braves. Now, in terms of pity, that could have been the only all Boston streetcar World Series if the Red Sox hadn't lost the one-game playoff to the Cleveland Indians and the questionable decision by manager Joe McCarthy to pitch a journeyman by the name of Denny Galehouse in that critical game.
Oh, yeah.
The second thing, the second anniversary, which is even sadder, is the 70th anniversary of Boston being reduced to a one major league team town. In the first days of the spring, Boston had two of its teams head to Florida, the Braves and the Red Sox, but only one returned. The Braves went to Milwaukee towards the end of that spring training. And that was the end of Boston as a two-team major league town. And also, I'd like to mention the heartbreak of Warren Spahn, because he had built a restaurant, Warren Spahn's restaurant, on Commonwealth Ave across from Braves Field, with plans to open it on opening day 1953 at Braves Field to feed all of the hungry attendees at the ballpark. The restaurant opened, but Warren was in Milwaukee, and ultimately it was sold, transformed into a Hayes Bickford, and then later it became a muffler shop. So those are the two.
Isn't it still? I drive by there, and isn't it still, or it's like became like a giant tire, or like I feel like it's still there. Like the building is still there.
I know the address is still there,
Yeah.
It may very well be. I mean, last time I was looking at it, it was some type of automotive place. So that's my my 2 cents in terms of.
Thanks, Bob. I feel like thanks a lot. I feel like I see Mark raising his hand, but I feel like somebody raised their hand earlier that was going to tell their story, but because I feel like we got Walt. Walt's got to tell his Bob story. But thank you, Bob. Those are very sad
That's
stories.
great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, Steve
I
was
wanted to
interrupting here. Hold on. What else up, Steve?
May I ask one question of Bob Brady? Is anyone left from the Braves team still living?
No, the last living player was Del Crandall. And
yes.
in terms of the front office, it was Roland Heeman. There are no front office people, there are no players, and there are no bat boys left to my knowledge. However, there are still a few minor league players, most notably Joe Morgan. Joe Morgan broke in with the Hartford Chiefs 1952 after signing with
Signed out of BC. And actually, Bob, I think I saw that Joe's going to be appearing somewhere. Is he going to be at the show in Wilmington, the sports collector show?
I haven't checked, I haven't checked lately, but
Yeah, I think he's showing up. He's 92 now, still
Yeah.
living in Walpole.
Yep.
In the house that the 80 Morgan Magic built the living room. Built the add-on to the house. All right. So no, that's great. We, and maybe in March we can tell some more Brave stories when the
Yeah.
anniversary of
Oh, yeah.
them leaving comes along. Because I got a bunch of them. I know Bob does too, things people have told me. Bob, last thing I was at the Hall of Fame for Pappy's induction, and the next morning I was in line buying a few things at the gift shop with my son, and there was a woman in front of me, very strikingly pretty older woman, maybe 60 or so. We started chatting. It turned out to be Roland's daughter.
yep.
And
Oh,
and it was unbelievable. And it was like, what are the odds? Like when I told her, like, I knew Roland and back in Baltimore, and then I was with the Braves Association. We just had this lovely chat, and she was so pleased that there was a Boston Brave, somebody who knew the Boston Braves at the Hall of Fame that day. It was really
Well,
cool.
you know that Roland married into the Quinn family.
Right,
So
right. So it was a Quinn, right? It was right. She became a Quinn, right? I met her husband too. Yeah. So anyway, all right, Walt, you've been waiting a long time, so go ahead.
I just wanted to offer a little perspective from someone who did not grow up in the Boston area. I'm from Central Connecticut. I grew up in Meriden, Connecticut, hometown of both Gary Wasilewski and Jack Barry. Thank you very much.
Game 6 winner, 1967, Gary Wasilewski.
And Barry managed the Red Sox to a 90-something win season in 1917. But anyway, 1978 is what I wanted to talk about. I remember 67 very well. My uncle had ceased. The reason I'm a Red Sox fan and not a Yankee fan, because that is very much divided territory. Being a Red, when I went to UMass, I used to tell people all the time, it's a lot easier being a Red Sox fan if you grew up in Eastern Massachusetts than in Central Connecticut, because you usually don't have to look any farther than your own family to find Yankee fans. Literally. But in 78, my dad was an electrical contractor, and I used to work summers wiring houses with him in those days before college. I was between my junior and I was about to go start my senior year at UMass, where I worked on the newspaper with Steve Buckley, by the way, as you mentioned earlier. But there were a lot, we did a lot of new houses that summer, and most of the people doing framing and roofing were Italian American. Meriden is very much a town of immigrants. And the Italian Americans tended to be, then and now, Yankee fans. They had been handed down the legends of DiMaggio, Crosetti, and Rizzuto, and in Connecticut, you can generally guess, if you know the nationality of people, whether they're actually, I don't know if it's so true now. I haven't lived there in many years. But anyway, there's this one group of guys, the Camerata brothers, as I recall their names were. They have both passed on, but I spent most of that summer as a wise mouth 21-year-old just ragging them silly on the Red Sox growing lead over the Yankees. And so what happens? September comes, I have to go back to UMass, and things go a different direction. And my father just passed away last year in his 90s. Still, I mean, today he died, said, I had to listen to those guys for more than a month say, where's your GD kid now? So I think we Red Sox fans learned that one lesson I learned back then is, we have, for all the pain and suffering we've, and I am old enough that I do recall wondering if I'd live to see a Red Sox World Series in all seriousness, but we have all been guilty of premature celebration. And I think if there's one lesson we all should have learned from some of these in 03 and in 78, it's.
Did you see, I put up a picture I put up a picture on the SABR Facebook page today, and my own Facebook page. Last night when I was watching the game, game 7 of 03, at the very end of the game on YouTube, so they went over to like, the NBC studio, and somebody put up, they put up a picture of the grounds crew at Fenway putting 100th anniversary World Series, on the grass, on the day of game 7. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what are they thinking about? And somebody took a picture of it.
And like your 86 story, I'll just tell you a quick one. I had a friend that I went to many Red Sox games with, who I'm not a person who typically likes to watch important Red Sox games in a bar, because you can't hear, and it's way too, you got to focus, right? we made the decision, having been to many games, like, look, game 6, 86, we want to be there to celebrate when they win. I mean, and it's the same, it's the,
Were
same
you
old
wearing
stuff.
Red Sox stuff?
Oh yeah, but I was in Connecticut, but everybody else was wearing Red Sox stuff then.
But you were at Shea Stadium.
No.
Oh, just watching at home.
I was
Okay.
I was in a bar in Connecticut.
Okay, because that was back when
But
like
it was-
you really
but it was
couldn't
the
wear Red
same
Sox
story.
stuff
I mean,
to Yankee
it was
Stadium
just
or
like-
Shea.
It was like
had to
that
fight.
silent procession, like 2 seconds after Knight stomped on the plate. I mean, it was like, oh, I'm done. And I mean, it was. I've never been sure. I mean, my buddy actually came over. If you remember, there's a rain out in between game 6 and 7.
That's how, Hurst got to start instead of
Yeah, and Boyd didn't. Then we won't go there. But my friend came over to the house, and my wife still remembers this. I mean, he sat there saying, we might still win 7, and I was absolutely. I have never been sure of anything in my life
that they would lose.
That they were going to lose game 7, and it really didn't matter how big their lead was. That was the one and only time I think I truly thought maybe there is something to this.
I think a lot of people thought that in 04, going into game 4 after losing 19-8 in game 3. That's why what made that so magical too is just everyone was spent, and it was just like, let's just get it over with, including.
Yeah, I mean, and I have said this to Yankee fans a few times. I said, I don't care how many World Series you've won. We're never going to catch you in my lifetime. I'm not even going to think about it. But you will never have a 2004.
I got a message.
You'll experience as a fan will ever be like 2004.
No, absolutely not.
The way they did it, and all the history before that
never gets old, and especially when it happened just the year before. I mean, 03, it was like, and then having Wakefield winning, after he let up the home run to Boone. All right, so I got a personal, I got a request from, actually, I believe this is a guy I went to high school with, but he's a little older than me, JP Plunkett. He says he only has a few minutes, but he really wants to share a story. So wherever you are, JP, please tune in and let's hear your tale.
Thanks. I'm here in Milton, Massachusetts. So speaking of Joe Morgan, I saw him at a Boston College hockey golf tournament this summer, and he looked great, absolutely great. I think he just turned 92, or somebody said, but he's fantastic. 6'2" and even, and that reminds me of 1988 and 1990. It doesn't get talked about very much. Sort of just getting destroyed. I think both times by Oakland in the playoffs.
Yeah, 8 straight.
Right, both were sweeps.
Yeah.
I wonder, everybody likes to bring up all the sadness of 78, 86, 03, and boy, I share in all of that, but 88, 90 was pretty damn sad as well. So.
Yeah, well, I wonder if it's partially because everyone felt that Oakland was the much better team, and that like they were lucky to get there. I mean, Morgan Magic was so special. It was almost like 67. Once they won, it was almost like anything else would have been icing.
Especially 88. I remember my park selling hot dogs, and I remember distinctly McNamara getting fired for game time. And Joe Morgan was the bullpen coach at the time. There was no such thing as bench. but he wasn't even a base coach or a positional coach. He was a bullpen coach, real low man of the totem pole. But he would sign autographs for us and talk to us all the time. And when he got the nod, nobody could believe it. That was sure enough.
Is that your dog, JP?
No, we
Oh,
have.
it's really funny because my dog just started barking. He heard whoever's dog is barking.
We have
My
two
wife's
dogs.
like, why is Archie barking?
I don't know. Those aren't our dog. That's not ours. But we have Remy, named after the great Jerry. He's 13 and change. And then we have, excuse me, my daughter just corrected me. He's 12 and change. And then we have Wally. How old's Wally Page? 1.5? Yeah, Wally, named after, of course, the
Oh,
green
we
one.
have a cat named Wally. But
There's.
JP, were you a Newton North grad?
No, I went to Nobles.
So JD Plunkett, is
I'm
that your
JP.
brother?
Nope. No, we grew up in Milton. I went to
Oh my God,
Nobles.
that's so weird. Because you went to BC, right?
I did.
I
Yeah,
hear you advertising all the time on the BC games for your
Oh,
company.
nice.
Yeah.
Thank
But I always assumed you were JD Plunkett's brother. That's so funny.
Nope.
Okay.
No relation. You
All right.
must be-
Sorry, Newton North trivia there. We're not going to get off that. Okay.
But in any event, I'm going to head off and help my daughter with her history homework. I'm a rookie at SABR, and I'm really excited to be involved. So I really look forward to diving in all ways, and it was fun to hear a bunch of these stories. And the next time I'll carve out more time to be able to stay the full session. But thanks, everybody.
yeah, welcome aboard. And we hope to have some in-person meetings coming up too. So be on the lookout for those. We got to
Definitely.
start beefing up the Facebook page again, though. For a while, we were doing trivia and stuff, and it was killing me because Walt and other people kept getting the answers, and I had time to come up with better ones that you couldn't like Google. Well, I know he wasn't Googling, but other people were. But anyway, so it just was too much for me. But we're gonna start updating the page more. But thank you for sharing the stories, JP. All right, and I think Peter Mancuso will be our next friend here to participate.
I hope JP enjoyed that golf tournament because my niece ran it for Boston College.
Hi.
Anyway, so I have a little Boston family. No, I don't sound like I parked the car, so you could tell I'm from a New Yorker, but I was never a Yankees fan. I was a diehard, dyed-in-the-wool Dodger fan. So at times in my boyhood, I can exactly understand some of the frustrations of Red Sox fans. Let me just say this though first. This past Friday evening, this is mostly for you, Bob, Brady. This past Friday evening, the Staten Island Sports Hall of Fame, I'm native to Staten Island, the Staten Island Sports Hall of Fame inducted 7 people. One of them was Julie Bowers. And Julie Bowers was one of 3 African Americans who played on the 1952 Eau Claire Bears of the Northern League, minor league. The other 2 African Americans were Wes Covington and the young 18-year-old
Henry Aaron.
ended up hitting a lot of home runs afterwards. Hank Aaron.
Sorry, I shouldn't have scooped
And
you.
unfortunately, Julie was the oldest of the 3. He actually had a wonderful season, but by the time he was in 1952, he was about 28, where Aaron was 18. So to give you the comparison. And so Julie never got to the major leagues, but he was signed by the Boston Braves because that's whose team that was in 1952.
Is he still around?
No, Julie, I'm sorry, passed away. Actually, he's a World War II vet. He passed away in the 1970s.
Okay.
I
thought maybe we had another Boston Braves person that we
Yeah,
could-
no, we don't.
Yeah.
But he was one of 3 Staten Islanders, by the way, who played for the in the Negro Leagues. And he and two others of his boyhood companions all had a cup of coffee with the New York Black Yankees right after World War II. But Julie did get to the minor leagues, and would have made it if he was younger. All right, but so I didn't become a Red Sox fan until the 1990s. And the reason for that was that I moved to New Hope, Pennsylvania, where I live now. And right across the river from me, and about 30 minutes down the river, is where the Trenton Thunder play. And for a lot of the 1990s, or first they were a Detroit franchise, but a few years after I moved here, they became a Red Sox franchise. And I watched Garcia Parra and Trot Nixon and all these guys go through the system down there. And then this whole thing about the curse of the Bambino was heating up. And I kind of said, I can relate to this, because, the Red Sox are like my Brooklyn Dodgers when it comes to the Yankees. So what some of my earliest memories were, as a grade schooler, coming in the day after Don Lawson's perfect game, and one of my many Yankee friends with Yankee hats on said, perfect game, perfect game. I didn't even know what a perfect game was. I don't think he did either. And so, I think about it until somebody told him what it was. One day I was walking into the New York City Police Academy. After I had retired, I had worked there many, many years. And I was just up the street doing some business, and I stopped by to say hello to a commanding officer who had once worked for me. And I had on a Brooklyn Dodger hat. And I had got stopped in the lobby to, they had a call upstairs to make sure I was okay to come up. And while I was standing there with my Brooklyn Dodger hat on, the New York police officer on the security detail asked me if that was a Boston Red Sox hat. So I said to him, "Are you a New York police officer?" I said, "We used to have a team in Brooklyn."
Wasn't that a song?
Used to have
That was a Sinatra song, wasn't it? There used to be a ballpark.
I'm sorry?
I think there was a song by Frank Sinatra where he's saying there used to be a ballpark,
Yeah.
and it was
That's right.
kind of
Used to
supposed to
be
be
a
about the
ballpark.
Dodgers and the
That's right.
Giants.
Ebbsfield. But I did get to Ebbsfield once as a boy. I lived in Staten Island, but we went with a summer school, PSAL program, and we went over as little kids, kind of pack a lunch and everything. And I remember seeing Jackie Robinson play.
Wow.
Many years later, I got to meet Rachel Robinson and spend some time with her. It had nothing to do with baseball, so I didn't want to interject baseball into the conversation until it was all over with. And when the conversation was all over with, I started to say to her, I saw Jackie playing. She says, "Oh, don't call him Jackie." She says, "That's like a stage name." She says, "We call him Jack." So I always kind of keep that in mind.
Still alive, Rachel Robinson.
She is. She's
100
over
years
100. She's 100 years old.
Wow.
Yes, she is.
Those are wonderful stories, Peter.
Yeah, they're great. Okay. But anyway, so I came to become a Red Sox fan. So I just wanted to tune in tonight, particularly. I saw Joanne's email, and I wanted to tune in tonight, particularly with the topic, because I just kind of watching the Red Sox this year was like watching a train wreck.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was. It
tough
was.
year.
Yes.
But that's nice. It's nice to hear about a New Yorker becoming a Red Sox fan. It's interesting. I wonder how many Dodger fans became Red Sox fans because of their hatred of the Yankees. I know a lot of them became, of course, Mets fans.
It's an easy transition.
Although you did win in '55. I mean, you did have the one win. Red Sox never had that, but
Yeah.
Thank you. So who wants to go next? We're already at 1 hour. Joanne, we could go on a little longer if people have stories they want to share.
Well, we can go a little longer, yeah, and I could close it at the very end of it, with Peter had reminded me, but also about not all of the times that we lost and won, we still were really hesitant in 2004 to accept the fact that we might win, and that would ruin the whole legacy that we had developed for 86 years. And there is a poem for that, but I'll read it at the very end.
All right, Mark Wise is raising his hand.
Yeah.
So I think he raised it before. He's one of the only guys who are using the actual icon of the hand raising. So that's impressive. So we will let him go.
All right.
All right, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, I've been a fan since 1980. So I was too young to remember 1975 or 1978, thankfully. So I guess I had my coming of age story of 1986. I was about 13 and a half. And at that point, I didn't have any worries that I wasn't gonna live to see the Red Sox win the World Series. And of course, 1986 was a magical season. Red Sox found ways to win games that you think were impossible to win. And after a while, it started to feel like just maybe it was meant to be. And especially when Dave Henderson hit that home run and they survived the bottom of the ninth against the Angels in Game 5 and went on to stomp in the last two games. And then they actually took the 3-2 lead against the Mets. And the thing is, though, the whole time, my father was I'm a fourth generation baseball fan. My great grandfather, my grandfather were Yankee fans, and my father rebelled and became a Red Sox fan. But he was very frustrated by the time 1986 rolled around. So by 1986, I was all excited about it. And he'd try to temper my excitement and say, look, they're not going to win. They just don't do it. They're not going to win. And even got to the World Series Game 6. They had 2 outs and the scoreboard flashed, congratulations, Boston Red Sox. Bruce Hurst named MVP. And my father said to me, they're not going to win. They're just not going to win. I had enough at that point. So I used some very choice language that 13-year-old should never use towards his father and told him off. And sure enough, Gary Carter gets a base hit, but I'm not worried because they're going to win. And then, Kevin Mitchell pinch hits, he's not even wearing a jockstrap and gets a base hit to put runners at first and third. Okay, they're going to make me sweat a little bit, but it's okay. And then Ray Knight and the 0-2 pitch bloops one to put runners at first, third, make a 5-4. And I'm thinking, oh God, they're really making me sweat. And then I saw John McNamara come out and call for Bob Stanley, and I knew it was over. But I couldn't say it. So we're watching. My father's looking at me. Then finally, a wild pitch / it could have been pass ball, it was a wild pitch to Mookie. My father looks at me and says, are you happy now? And he turns the TV set off. And we sit there staring at a blank screen for about 5 minutes. And he's like, look, you need to see this. So he turns it on and I see the replay of Bill Buckner there.
Oh.
So I think it's interesting that you're in darkness. It's almost like you're in witness protection, Mark. Like you're like, we can't see your face. And you just told the saddest story of the night. So no, you should stay dark. It's kind of appropriate.
Actually, that face isn't much to see anyway.
Yeah,
So
now we can see it. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, but so that was how, and I think, by the time Game 7 rolled around, I was no longer naive. I knew they weren't going to win. Even when they were up 3-0, I was kind of waiting for it. Sure enough. But so by after 1986, I started to wonder, and by 2003, I was newly married. And as Game 7 against the Yankees, I couldn't bear to watch Game 6. I didn't watch the Yankees celebrate. So it was Game 7, and the Red Sox had that 4-0 lead. But I started to get a little paranoid when they had first and third, nobody out, and the Yankees brought Messina in. And I think it was Veritek struck out, and Damon hit a double play to kill the rally because the Red Sox could have made it 5 or 6-0. They looked like going to be in cruise control. And then it was 4-2 after Juice and Jambi his two home runs there on steroids or whatever it made. So you could tell that Pedro was done when he did his point upwards to the heavens. And after the 7th inning, luckily Soriano was the batter, and Soriano was swinging anything that moved, and Pedro knew that, and he got him, struck him out. So after that inning was over, I had a notepad, and it said on it, Red Sox. I showed it to my wife. Said Red Sox 4, Yankees 5. And she said, "What are you talking about? The rest are winning." I said, "No, the Red Sox are going to find a way to blow this." Then we went to the 8th inning, and David Ortiz hit the home run off David Wells, make a 5-2. So I changed my pad. Red Sox 5, Yankees 6. And so then, of course, we watched the 8th inning, the bottom of the 8th, and of course, it was so obvious. It was so bad. I mean, I'm watching it, it's like a train wreck. I mean, it was somehow got Nick Johnson, 10 pitches. We got Nick Johnson out in the pop-up, and Then it was, oh, and I remember saying it was happening. See, Jason Varitek had a habit of standing up when he was going to throw a high fastball, a high fastball. I always believed that a hitter had to sense that, right? So it was 0-2, the count was 0-2 on Jeter with 1 out. And I remember saying, don't throw him that high fastball. And sure enough, Jeter whacked, because they say he's going to hit it hard to right. Sure enough, as soon as the words left my mouth, Jeter whacked one at deep right. Nixon misplayed a little bit. It got past him for a double. I guess they hit off the wall or something like that. It was catchable, but that started a rally. And next thing you know, it was a base hit by Bernie Williams. At that point, it was like, okay, obvious move. Get him out of there. Bring Embry in to face Matsui. And he doesn't. And then Matsui doubles down the line, second and third. Okay, now's your chance to put in Timlin or whoever. Or actually, I still would go with Embry because Jambi's on deck. And he kept him in there in the bloop double. And suffice to say, every time the Red Sox were batting, I'd watch. Every time the Red Sox were pitching, I'd run for cover. So I think by the bottom of the 11th, I was downstairs like blurring the stereo so I wouldn't hear anything, hoping that I'd come up. My wife was supposed to come get me when the inning was over. And within 2 seconds, she's like, okay, come up now. The Red Sox didn't finish first tonight. And I'm thinking, oh my God. And the funny thing is, in 2004, I mean, I had no illusion they're going to win, but in 2004, it's kind of funny when they did win. I mean, because I remember it was 2 outs and the Red Sox were one out away, and it was obvious at that point they were going to win. But I said I can't celebrate until I actually do it, and they did it. And I remember celebrating, but it felt weird. Like, is that all there is? And then because it hadn't hit me, but the funny thing is, when it hit me? It hit me an hour later. What made it sink in was that infamous graphic they always showed on every freaking thing you could see. It always said longest World Series drought: Chicago Cubs 1906, Chicago White Sox 1917, Boston Red Sox 1918. You had that ingrained in your memory, right? So and then ESPN flashed the graphic: Chicago Cubs 1906, Chicago White Sox 1917. Cleveland Indians, 1948. I'm like, wait, where the hell are the Red Sox? Like, wait a minute, they're not on this freaking list anymore. Holy crap. And it just hit me. And I was like, oh, once like a ton of bricks. And they were world champs. That's how I think I finally realized it. And
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Indians are still there.
They're still, that's punishment for 1948, by the way.
Yeah.
And the Mets haven't won since 1986. That's punishment for them.
But the Indians, of course, going back to the beating the Red Sox and the Braves, and it took a guy who survived World War II, after his ship was blown up, he was like floating on scrap. Gene Bearden.
Yeah, knuckleballer.
The Red Sox and the Braves in that series.
Yeah.
That's a great story, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, that is good.
Mark is Mark, the other Mark, now he's using the hand icon, of course. So what do you want to add, Mark?
What I really wanted to say is, when JD Plunkett were talking about dogs, it reminded me of a Peter Sellers movie, one of the Inspector Clouseau movies, where he's in a little hotel in France, and a dog is nipping at his leg, and he says to the proprietor, "Can you tell your dog to stop nipping at my leg?" And the proprietor doesn't do anything, and the dog keeps nipping. And Peter Sellers says, "Well, and finally he shoos the dog away and all that." And he says, "Well, why didn't you get your dog to stop nipping?" The proprietor says, "That's not my dog." One of the, I always
Good one.
love.
Thank you.
But anyway, I guess a couple things is, one, I think how do Brooklyn Dodger fans become Red Sox fans? I think isn't Doris Kearns Goodwin the one that we look at, right? She grows up a Dodger fan. In fact, her father tells her, listen to the game, do the box, do the box score each game, and when I come home, you'll tell me how the results of the game. She said many years later, I think my father knew the results of the game. But of course, they move, and and luckily for us, the Red Sox never moved. they moved, and that's got to be the worst memory for people who are still alive, for Dodger fans. I know, I still know some of them. They move, and she has to become a fan. And I don't know, did she come up here to go to college or whatever, or to teach, whatever? And that's how she became a Red Sox fan. But I guess the other question is this. I don't know if Bob Brady's still on the line, whatever. If it had been switched, if the Red Sox had felt like they couldn't make it in Boston, and we know that could have happened in '66. We know that because we know Yawkey was saying, I can't make it in this park. He wants to go to where UMass Boston is and all that today. If it had been switched and the Red Sox had left for greener pastures, would Boston have become a National League town? And it's just a question more than anything else. That's all.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And also, if the Braves had won in '48, would that have been enough to keep them in town? Because that was their one chance to be the big dog. But we got Jay has a story, so let's hear from him, and then we should probably think about winding it down.
Hi, everybody. Sorry to come in so late, and I will try to be brief. But having said that, I'm going to start off with there used to be a ballpark. This sounds like the theme song for tonight. It's so somber. I could not resist.
Nice.
I wasn't familiar with that. Just very as quickly as I can here, and because Saul is here, I don't know if Saul remembers this. We had a SABR meeting at the Boston Globe building, and this is when you were doing your Fenway book, and you were talking about Fenway, and basically the question was asked, who wants to save Fenway? And 99.9% of the hands went up, and then my 0.1% hand went up with, I didn't want to save Fenway. And the response, the reaction, oh yeah, was unbelievable. And you looked at me and you didn't know what to say. So all I could say was because of sour grapes, and those sour grapes came out of 85 and into 86 because the ownership decided to raise ticket prices after the loss. They took away some of the bleacher seats that I enjoyed so much for season ticket holders.
Oh yeah.
I'm a bitter, I thought I was old then, a bitter old man. I became a Toronto Blue Jays fan. They went on to win some World Series. I started going to other ballparks, including this Sky Dome. And I was wondering, why can't Boston have a park like this? So it comes fast forward then to you asking that question and me being the sole person who didn't want to save Fenway. That stuck with me for quite a while until I started taking my son to baseball games, and he became a Red Sox fan. So I made a transition. He watched.
Are you okay now with Fenway?
It comes and goes. The prices were just a little bit too much for me. Yeah. If I can get it in the lower box seats, yeah, it's the best place in the world to watch a baseball game. But behind a pole in right field just doesn't cut it. But anyway, I do like the idea of Fenway as a museum and what it represents. And I have a slightly different attitude. My hand wouldn't go up so quickly that I didn't want to save Fenway. But
that's great.
2004, as we know, the Red Sox won. I was with my son watching the game, and I didn't know what to do. He hadn't been there celebrating and saying, Dad, we have to go drive around. I honestly, that's how low I had gotten. I didn't know what to do.
Is this all there is?
Yeah, that's right. And so we drove around, and it reawakened my love for the Red Sox and so on. But there were lots of other pieces in there. But just
no, I think that's a great way to end it. Besides Joanne's parting shot.
Yeah, but thank you so much.
Oh, thanks, Jay, and thanks for the the memory of the book
Can I make
event.
one comment
I
before-
do think
Oh,
you're a
hold on.
fine,
Somebody say,
you're a
all
fine man, Saul. It's all
Oh,
right.
go ahead, Jay.
right, thanks.
If you want to know the misery of it, of like what happened in when the Braves left and when Brooklyn, the Dodgers left for California, I have a lot of friends in Montreal. As a matter of fact,
Yeah.
I took my wife to a baseball game in Montreal on our wedding night, but that was at Jerry Park. But one of the things you have to say is the misery of losing a team. The people in Montreal have not gotten over it yet. You know, and every year there's a Expos Fest in March, and we've been going to it religiously for the last 5 times they held it. But
Oh.
the misery is still there. More than the Braves, probably more than Brooklyn, more than the Braves, because they lost a team and they never got another one. Just to mention that.
And a team that was so good.
Yes.
In 95, probably the best team in baseball in 94.
94.
Yeah. No, that's
And
nice to know they still have
that's-
those Expo Fests.
Yeah, that's one of the saddest things.
All right. Well, thanks, Greg. So I'd like to, first of all, say 14 people hung out with no agenda other than just to say, share stories.
Well,
We
we
have
had a
14
high of 22 was.
Yeah,
the
we were
high.
22 at one point, but 14 hung out to the bitter
Hung
end.
out to the end. That's right.
Yeah,
So that
and
tells you
here we
something.
are, and we got some wonderful stories. I mean, really great.
Yeah.
It was a really great idea, Joanne. So thank you, and why don't you close us
I
out?
will close, yeah. Now, we've heard all the stories about enduring all of the sad parts and all. And then in 2004, as we were approaching a World Series win, of course, a lot of us didn't think we were going to make it. I was there at the ALCS Game 3, but I'll forget that. But anyway. And now it was time for us to try to handle being World Series winners. And it could be more difficult in some ways than being the loser, because we were getting used to that. And there was a resident of Walpole, it wasn't Joe Morgan, but it was somebody else who did write a poem that was in the Boston Globe in regard to the Red Sox World Series win. And this is what he wrote. And you may be familiar with the original poem that he parodized on this, but these are the saddest of possible words. The Red Sox are World Series champs. We're like the Yankees, the Mets, and the Birds. The Red Sox are World Series champs, ruthlessly pricking our schadenfreude bubble, turning our Puritan angst into rubble, putting our psyches in ever more trouble. The Red Sox are World Series champs.
Wonderful. That's what I was trying to say.
That was
Yes,
great.
that's right. Yes.
That was great. Thanks, Joanne, and thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Really appreciate everybody turning out on a
Yes.
cold, sad night. And look on email, Facebook, SABR to find our next meeting, probably mid-December.
Yeah, well, yeah, something is in the works where it's.
Yeah, we got a couple authors we're talking to and some other people.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, a couple-
and I don't know if in person yet or not, but we'll figure it out.
know what we're doing.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Have a
you,
great
everybody.
night. All right.
Thank you for coming.